Welcome to Henry VIII's England, Colonialism, and Early Virginia. This is Melinda Klein. English people in the early decades of the 17th century experienced what seemed to them an accelerating pace of social change. What was most striking was the rapid growth of population. Between 1580 and 1650, the population almost doubled. 3.5 million to 5 million. It put enormous strains on the agrarian economy. While many people lived out their lives in villages and towns exclusively, mobility was possible. During the 17th century, hundreds of thousands of farming laborers took to the country roads bound for London, a manufacturing city. These migrant workers and other marginal English peoples would eventually move around more, some of them moving to British America. After the failure of Roanoke, Richard Hatlock kept alive the dream of English colonies in North America. Advocates of colonial expansion argued that the North American mainland and fishing areas off the coasts of Newfoundland and Nova Scotia promised great profits for adventurers. In a time that England attempted to expand economically, cheap raw materials made more economic sense than buying them from the Spanish or other Europeans. During the 17th century and beyond, British colonists brought with them their long hatred of the Spanish and Catholicism. Queen Elizabeth, daughter of Henry VIII, began her reign in 1558. Like her father, she was a Protestant. In suppressing religious strife, she did much to strengthen her nation economically. She welcomed to England skilled textile workers who had fled the Netherlands. She continued the government policy of enclosure, the consolidating and fencing off of small farms and turning them into pasture land for sheep to supply England's growing woolen industry. She encouraged the development of English shipbuilding, especially warships like her father, and trade with Russia, Spain, and France. What would inspire men to leave England and undertake a long, rough sea voyage to begin life in a wilderness surrounded by hardship? What would motivate men to risk money to outfit ship and send colonists on such high-risk ventures? Many men simply sought to increase their wealth by inventing trading companies. In 1585, Richard Hatlock, an English geographer, diarist, and investor of trading companies, listed as an argument for English colonization some of the following: planting of religion among the infidel, increase the force of Christians, enlarging the dominion of the Queen's most excellent majesty, consequently honoring her in such a respect. John White was sent by Sir Walter Raleigh as artist-illustrator on his first voyage to the New World. During this journey, he made numerous sketches of the landscape and the people he encountered. However, when the colony ran low on supplies, the colonists requested that White return to England for provisions. His return to Roanoke was delayed by England's conflict with Spain and the Spanish Armada, and when at last he returned to Roanoke in August of 1591, he found it deserted. Roanoke, mainly financed by Sir Walter Raleigh, was England's attempt to start a colony on the mainland of the Americas, placing it well behind Spain and France in claiming land and planting settlements. After 1604 and the war with Spain, it was now time to challenge the Spanish claims in the New World and create colonies of their own. Sir Walter Raleigh eventually transferred his right to establish a colony to a group of London merchants. Out of this grew two joint stock companies, the Virginia Company of London and Plymouth, that were granted a charter to establish colonies on April 10, 1601 by King James I. The Plymouth colony that would follow the Jamestown settlement in 1607 to Maine failed. The London Company or the Virginia Company sent out 3 ships and about 104 colonists December 20th, 1606. Because of storms and staying off the coast of England for 6 weeks, they did not arrive in Virginia until April 26, 1607. What did the colonists do? Most of the first colonists to Jamestown preferred to search for gold rather than work. They had no desire to clear the land, plant gardens, build a fort, or guard against Indian attacks. Finally, colonists realized that in order to survive, they would have to plant and cultivate their own winter stores. Jamestown as a settlement location was badly situated. It was built on a low, swampy, and sandy island peninsula in the James River of the Chesapeake Bay. However, after taking the advice of the company, they did not settle near the open ocean, but into the interior. From 1607 through the winter until January of 1608, only 38 of the original 104 settlers had survived. Historians have never been certain just how much truth are contained within Captain John Smith's account of his life and accomplishments of the early settlement of Jamestown. Even if only a portion of his accounts were accurate and truthful, Smith would still represent the adventurer at best, but he was impetuous, headstrong, disliked taking orders, and stole food during the starving years 1607 to 1609-10 from the Powhatan Indians. He had been active in founding the Virginia Company, and without him the new colony might not have survived its first 2 years. In 1609, the Virginia Company was reorganized and granted a new charter. By 1618, the company had poured more than $10 million into the settlement without receiving any return on their investment. John Rolfe, an Englishman, coming by way of Bermuda, brought the first prize tobacco seeds to Jamestown. Europeans liked the Spanish tobacco from the West Indies. They did not like Virginian tobacco, and this was a godsend for an agricultural experiment introduced by Rolfe that soon took off. With the arrival of indentured servants, these are British laborers under contract, and this tobacco strain, Jamestown was saved. By 1612, Jamestown had its first crop of tobacco. About this time, Rolfe's wife died. She had lost their child and never fully recovered from the sea voyage. In 1614, Rolfe married an Indian girl, then 18 years old, Pocahontas. In 1617, Jamestown was hit with smallpox. Disease constituted another of Jamestown's problems. New settlers brought with them scurvy, the plague, and various tropical diseases such as yellow fever, contracted in Bermuda and other Caribbean colonies. In addition, it has been estimated that half of every shipload of new settlers came down with malaria, pneumonia, or dysentery landing in Virginia. Of those taken ill, most died. Unlike the growing of wheat introduced in Virginia in 1618, tobacco was labor-intensive. Indentured servants were imported as a source of labor, along with, over a slow period of time, slaves from Africa. After the 1622 Indian attack and the internal problems, by 1624 the Virginia Company lost its charter and Virginia became a crown colony.